Today is November 27th, 2025, and welcome to the 463rd episode of the So Video Games podcast. Here on the show, I talk about any game at all, including new stuff, old stuff, and anything in between. My name is Brad Galloway. I'm the one-man host of the show, and I'm also the editor of GameCritics.com, a website that uses the full range of review scores and offers full accessibility info on every review we publish. Hey, what's up, guys and girls and people and everybody? Oh, it's been a minute since I recorded. I'm coming in a little late this week. It is a holiday week, but I don't necessarily think that's exactly why. I think, work is always kind of an ever-present bugaboo for me, keeping me pretty busy. We had some life stuff. My son went down to Palm Springs to spend some time with his grandparents, and he's coming back like literally today, so we had to get some stuff ready for him. We were cleaning up the house and reorganizing things while he was gone, and we needed to wrap some of that stuff up, and I don't know, a bunch of other things, just this and that, and it just kind of seemed like, man, life kind of caught up this week, I guess. So getting around to the show. Apologies for keeping y'all waiting. It's later than I usually like to record, but here we are. Other things to mention, besides life being busy. Oh yeah, the wife and I went to get our flu and COVID vaccines yesterday. I think I'm definitely feeling those. I'm not sick, but like the site where I got my COVID shot, like on my arm, is pretty sore. And I think I've got just kind of a little bit of a body ache and a little bit of a headache. I don't feel sick or anything. You know, vaccines don't make you sick. That's not what I'm saying. I am a believer in vaccine science. That's been proven for decades. It's a real thing. I am 100% pro-vaccine, so I'm not trying to shit talk vaccines or anything. But you know, sometimes you do feel a little bit under the weather when you have one, just mildly. And I think that's kind of where I'm at right now. Energy is a little bit low today, so we will do our best to get through the show. I felt like I couldn't put it off any longer. I would feel terrible if I did. So here we are. On the upside, a little bit of a side note, I have a niece. I don't think I've ever mentioned her on the show before, but we were pretty close when she was little, and then life happened. Not going to get into that here, but you know, events crop up and things change and situations change and whatnot, and kind of fell out of touch with her for a while. And it was just like this week that she reached back out to me, and it had been a minute. It had been a real minute, and I was like, oh my God. Here is my niece. We are reconnecting. We are talking. I'm super happy to be back in touch with her, and really looking forward to seeing what she's been up to. Also, it turns out she's a pretty serious gamer, which is amazing. Made my uncle's heart quite warm and fuzzy. Although I would love her just as much if she wasn't a gamer. It doesn't matter in that way, but it was like a nice little perk. And I'm looking forward to just reestablishing that relationship. So shout out to my niece Blair. Very, very thankful that you reached out. Glad to talk to you again. And, you know, family's good when you get along. And we had a pretty good relationship back then, hoping that continues. So shout out to Blair. And I guess that's it for preamble this week. I guess I could mention other stuff we published at Game Critics. Sister site of this podcast, GameCritics.com. Let me shine a little spotlight on something. If you haven't been over to the website, please click on over. Check it out, see what you might have missed. Up on the front page at the moment, we've got the last podcast, of course, episode 462. We've got a video review from Eugene Sachs for Lumines Arise. I talked about it on the podcast last week. I wasn't too bullish on it, but Eugene got a lot more out of it than I did. He really seemed to enjoy that one, which is cool. No shade. It just wasn't for me at that particular time. I don't think there's anything really like wrong with it. I had no critiques. I think it just wasn't hitting for me. But that's, you know, whatever. That happens. Not a big deal. So go over and check out Eugene's take. He's also got plenty of video footage to give you a good sense of what the game is like. Also, Ryan Nally, super writer Ryan Nally, has covered Blood West, coming to us from New Blood. This is a first-person stealth Western game. I will actually talk about it later on the show. We ended up getting 2 codes. Shout out to New Blood for sending those codes over. Thank you very much. So Ryan did the review, and I'll be doing the podcast coverage. And spoiler for both of us, we both really liked it. Also at Game Critics this week, we have a review of Little Nightmares 3 from Jason Ricardo. We did not hit like the Halloween spooky season timeline, but I still think it's worth covering. You know, Little Nightmares is a pretty prominent franchise in the horror genre, and I feel like based on Jason's feedback, This one is a bit of a miss. Not terrible, but like it maybe is perhaps not as on point as the other two. I'm a pretty big fan of Little Nightmares, the first two, and I was curious about this one. In fact, I have it downloaded, just haven't had time to crack into it yet. So I'm curious to see if my opinion will line up with Jason's. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But he always writes a well thought out, well reasoned review, whether we agree or not. So I appreciate that about him. Also, one more thing to mention over at GameCritics.com. Jason was busy this week, and he put out a second piece. This was a preview of an upcoming PC game called Pigface. This is pretty clearly an homage to Manhunt, Rockstar's disgusting, nihilistic, super gritty, ultra-violent title back on the... Was it PS2? PS3? PS2? I feel like it was PS2. I could be misremembering because it's kind of lost in the mists of time there. But regardless, Manhunt was pretty seminal, pretty controversial, pretty influential. And this is clearly, Pigface is clearly taking cues from that game. So not exactly the same thing, but like when you look at it, if you've played Manhunt and you look at Pigface, the first thing you think of is Manhunt. And I think that's pretty intentional. So, you know, well, you can check that out if you wish. Jason's got a preview there. And I think that's it for new stuff that I'm going to mention this week. Before we get into the show, let's talk about the Patreon for a second. Just heads up about the Patreon. All the costs of this podcast, so Video Games, and the sister site, GameCritics.com, which I just mentioned, these are paid for out of my own pocket, out of my own personal money that I earn by having a job that is outside of the games industry. And that's always been the way. I have never depended on the games industry for my income. I don't know if I've ever talked about it on the show before, but I clearly remember back in the day, it was about the year 2000, pretty much. I had gone through a lot of changes in my life at that time. I had recently moved. I was a single guy in a new city, kind of starting fresh and just, you know, seeing what's what, trying to find my place in the world. And at that time, I was really thinking, okay, so I need to really pick a lane here. I can either lean into video games journalism and try to make that a living, or I can fall back on my other skill, American Sign Language interpreting, and I can just do that and keep games as a fun thing that I enjoy and just kind of like have that be something that I spend time with as I wish and keep that on my own terms. And I really went back and forth for a while. At the time, games journalism field was quite different. Lots of people were getting into it. Like lots of people had like quote unquote real jobs in games journalism. It seemed like people were making money. Like it seemed like it was a thing. And so it wasn't as, well, I hate to say unrealistic as it is now, but I feel like getting a games job in journalism is kind of unrealistic these days, especially with the economy in America the way it is. But I was like, okay, so maybe. But, you know, I chose to do ASL interpreting, and in hindsight, I'm really glad that I did that. Really glad I did that. Interpreting has been good to me. It led to me meeting my wife and the life that we've had and lots of adventures in the world of interpreting, which is outside of video games. But then I was able to also maintain Game Critics and to be a reviewer for the last, 26 years and have all sorts of stories and stuff about that. So I think it worked out. Getting all back, sorry, that was a huge tangent, but getting back to this, everything about Game Critics and So Video Games comes out of my pocket. And if you enjoy this podcast, if you enjoy the website, if you've checked out any of our incredible 26 years of archives, or if you listen to the show when you're driving around and I keep you company when you're on your way to work or something like that, if you enjoy what we do, what I do, that would be great if you could chip in just a little bit to help me keep it all going. Even just $1 a month, just one. If everybody listening chipped in just one, every expense I have would be covered. And if you can afford it, I would super appreciate it. Also, shout out to our YouTube channel at GameCritics.com videos. Couldn't remember what it was for a second. Sorry. It's the morning. Eugene is the big man over there. He kind of runs that side of things. But we do curated videos, video reviews. The archives of the podcast are there. We do interviews when we get a chance. It's slowly growing. But if you want to go over there, like and subscribe, that would be pretty awesome. And I think that's it. I think that's it for the preamble. Let's get to the meat of the show, which is the video games. Before we get to the brand new stuff, let me circle back for a second. As y'all know, I start each show with circle backs where I circle back to things that I've covered in depth on previous episodes. Not going to get into all the details here, but this is just a quick update to let you know if my thoughts have changed on something for better or for worse after spending more time with it. This week, only got one circle back. This goes back to Instruments of Destruction on PS5. Covered it on the last episode. This is the game where you have loads of different fantasy vehicles. They fly, they float, they slide. They've got saws, wheels, treads, guns. I don't know, like bulldozer, shovels, scoops, like whatever. They're just like if you took every construction vehicle known to man, put them in a jar, threw in bombs and guns and some rockets and just shook it all up, what you would get is basically the vehicles of Instruments of Destruction. And it's a very video game, which is totally fine by me, where you just go to these small islands and you go to try to do these objectives, like blow up 10 buildings in less than 10 minutes, or blow up 100 buildings without taking damage, or, try to destroy 5 buildings using 4 bullets, and, like all these kind of like gamey ass challenges. And each one, almost every single level so far, has had a completely different vehicle, and half the fun is kind of learning how to control these things. Been chipping away at it, have not finished, but it's still really fun. It's just goofy, straight across video game ass fun, where you're fighting the controls in a good way because every vehicle controls differently. You're learning how to aim and shoot differently because every gun feels different. You're flying around these islands, which are obviously like super fake. Like there's no adherence to realism whatsoever here, and that's totally fine with me. It's just playing with something for the sake of playing with it, and I think that's really good. There's a lot of inherent fun to be had here. I think it looks great, controls great, it's interesting. There's always something new. I'm always curious to see what the next challenge is going to be. You can go back and replay them if you like to earn stars. Earning stars unlocks some extra stuff. It's just fun. It's just really fucking fun. I really like it a lot. It reminds me a little bit of Blast Corps from N64 back in the day, if you're old and crusty enough to remember that. But I think this game is actually much better than Blast Corps, honestly. Same concept, but just does everything way better. Better graphics, better controls, better concept. It's great. It's just great. I'm not hearing anybody talk about it because it's probably like this little niche thing that isn't really grabbing headlines right now. But I really do feel like Instruments of Destruction is just good, clean, silly video game fun, and it's just like exactly what I wanted to play right now, and I think it's just great stuff. So big thumbs up to Instruments of Destruction. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, go for it, man. There's also a build your own vehicle mode, which is pretty deep. I've barely scratched it, but if you want to tinker, they've got you covered here. So Instruments of Destruction, thumbs up. All right, up next we have Ultimate Zombie Defense, playing this on the Xbox. And let me just look at the script real quick here. Yes, every game I'm about to talk about, except for one, I was sent a code from the publisher. So just full disclosure, heads up. The one that I did not get a code for was Dispatch. I paid for that out of my own pocket. But every other game on the show, including Instruments of Destruction, which I just talked about, was given to me for free by the publisher. So full disclosure, in compliance with the FCC, there you go. And as you all know, giving me a free code absolutely does not guarantee a good review. That is for damn sure. Okay, Ultimate Zombie Defense. This is very clearly a lazy, sloppy, low effort PC port. It's on the Xbox right now. It 100% does not belong on a console in any way, shape, or form. It uses like mouse-based interface for basically everything. You are supposed to be like, I don't know, you're a survivor of whatever random zombie apocalypse. There's no story in this game. You just pick a character. You don't really have any information to base on which character to pick. I guess they just expect you to somehow know or something. You just pick a random character and then you just start, and then zombies come at you from the top of the screen, and you can't even control them like on a controller. Like you're using a controller. I'm using the Xbox controller, but it's like you're just moving a mouse. You're moving a mouse as to where you want to shoot. It's very clearly based on PC. They very clearly wanted you to use a mouse doing this. And then you can go to a menu that is, again, mouse-based, where you kind of move a cursor over it and you pick items that you can use to erect your defenses. There's various costs. I mean, it's just like, it just launches you into a bunch of menus with no preamble, no story, no setup, no context, mouse-based controls. It's just the laziest, shittiest port for a game that feels very low effort. And if that sounds harsh, I feel like this is kind of an insulting game to put on a console. I mean, I don't know the developers personally. Please don't take this personally, I guess, although I guess probably hard not to. But like, this is the kind of game that just, it's just a waste of my time. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of everybody's time. It doesn't play well. It's not very polished. It's not very deep. There's no niceties to it. This is just like one of those cheapy things that you would buy on PC and you would just like, okay, this is what it is, and you move on with your life. I did not spend long on it. I just felt like, why should I spend any time on this when the developer didn't spend any time on it? And it's just not worth, not really even worth talking about. Talking about it here because I got sent to code, and I oblige the PR person. I will say, like side note, the PR person is amazing. I love the PR person. You know who you are. Thank you for sending me this code. You're always the best, and I always love getting your emails, and I'm always happy to support you in any way. That PR person, not going to name names, but that person is the best, and I'm happy to do my due diligence on this one and mention it on the show. But this is a miserable game. It's just everything about it needs work, and yeah, enough said. This shouldn't be on a console, and it barely feels like a game in general. Very low effort here. Okay, moving on. Clover Pit. This is one of the very popular gambling / roguelike type games that are kind of like all over the place these days. You know, I don't know that I want to call it a Balatro like. I mean, maybe in some ways, but there's a bunch of these out right now based on slot machines, which this one is. There's poker, there's roulette, there's blackjack, there's solitaire. There's a million of these right now. Everybody is really kind of following the success, obviously, of Balatro, which was one of the biggest hits when it came out, and I know a lot of people are still playing that actually. Clover Pit takes a slightly different tack. You are a first-person viewpoint character trapped in a gross metal box. You don't know how you got there, but there's a slot machine in front of you. And then, in fact, this is actually the second slot machine game of this type that I've played. So there's definitely a lot of these out here. You have to spin the wheel, and you have to clear a certain amount of money in order to continue, which is very much like the structure in Balatro. So you, like, let's say, for example, the first round, I forget what it is. You have to make like $200 in order to continue. So slot machines are random as fuck. How do you make that happen? Well, you buy these like charms or items that have synergies and have special effects. Like, for example, one item makes diamonds on the wheels appear more often. So you can get one of those, and then diamonds will appear more often. And if you match at least three diamonds, could be up to 5 or more, then you get a bunch of money. And, you know, you can get a second item that's like, oh, diamonds are worth more. And then you can get a third one that says something like, you know, I don't know, whatever. You know, you get it. You get it. If you've been playing video games for more than a minute, and I bet listening to this podcast, you probably have, it's just like, you know, you have to look for synergies in the items that you buy, and you kind of have to weigh between how much money do I spend on these and how much money do I spend on spinning the roulette wheel. And there's all sorts of little, you know, cost analysis decisions, micro decisions you're making along the way. But the graphics are very like pixely, kind of like PlayStation-y, sort of like PS1 type era stuff. But it you know, it's intentional. It looks good. I think it looks good what it's supposed to look like. You get phone calls that give you little bonus abilities, a few other things like that. And if you clear a certain amount of money, then you keep going. You got, you know, the rounds increase and increase, and then you eventually get enough money and you keep going and keep going. I have not completed a run, and to be perfectly frank, I think this is well put together, but speaking for me specifically, something to know about me is that I do not have the gambling gene. I am not a gambler in any way. I don't really enjoy gambling. I've been to Las Vegas, and I think I spent $20 total on gambling, and then I was mad that I spent it because it was a waste and I should have bought something else. Could have bought like a lobster tail or something instead. So I'm not a gambler. I don't get that same rush from gambling in any way. And I know that, you know, some people do, some people don't. Some people have it more than others. Some people have it to the point it's a sickness. I get it. But like for me, just gambling doesn't work. Like it's just like, okay, that happened, and I kind of move on with my life. So that's just me personally. So I think the main premise of playing a slot machine like this, it doesn't do anything for me. Like, I think the game is neat. It's a cool premise. I like the death game premise in general. But just like as I was rolling, you know, spinning the slot machine, I'm like, this is boring. All I'm doing is pulling the arm and waiting for something to come up, and I don't really have a lot of influence on it. So there's like luck, and there's kind of just like letting the machine do its thing, which is pretty much like what a real slot machine is like. And I don't really play real slot machines. So I think if you are a gambling kind of person, or if you get a buzz out of gambling, you probably will like this a lot more than I do. I don't have no real criticisms, no complaints or anything. I think it's, you know, looks good for what it is. When you die, and you will die, you just like get dropped into a pit and you die. It's got a real like kind of gross vibe to it. I mean, I think it does what it wants to do and does it well. I just think I'm not a gambling kind of person, and so I don't get a buzz from playing. I just like, I'm sitting there like rolling the wheel like, okay, I could be doing something else. I should be platforming, or I should be shooting somebody, or I should be figuring out a puzzle or something. I just like more of an active kind of gamer. So I think because I am naturally resistant to gambling, it's just not clicking for me. But that said, a lot of people really like this one. Pretty well received. You can get it on Game Pass right now for quote unquote free if you have Game Pass. So give it a shot. Give it a shot. If you like gambling or chance, anything like that more than I do, which is a lot of people. I think most people probably like it a lot more than I do, and that's fine. Give it a shot. I think it's really well put together. But for me, just not something that I'm going to put a lot of time into, just because I just don't inherently get a lot of value out of gambling in general. So there you go. Clover Pit. Next up is Full Metal Schoolgirl, playing this on PS5. This is a third-person, real-time combat roguelike with a tower climbing structure. And if you know me and you know the show, you're like, uh-oh, this is Brad bait. It's a roguelike, plus it's got a tower. Uh-oh, watch out. And yeah, pretty much true. In this game, you choose from one of two female androids, and they are built like schoolgirls. Full disclosure, I'm not a big fan of the schoolgirl thing in general. I mean, I feel like there's kind of a weird vibe that I'm not super into. I mean, quick tangent, like I can really appreciate a mature woman. Someone who is very clearly over 18 and older is totally fine. Like I'm just not into that whole super young thing. And so playing a character who is a schoolgirl, like I'm not opposed to playing a character who is a schoolgirl, but if there's going to be like titillation and sexual innuendo, not necessarily my jam. Not a big fan of that. I don't go in for that. And I know that some people are like, but they're androids, it's different. Nah, I don't know. I don't do that whole thing. I've heard people make that argument where there's like some very young looking anime character, but they're actually a 2,000-year-old dragon. They're older than America. Like, no, I don't care. They still look like a too young person. So that aspect of it not working for me, and I'm kind of just like pushing that to the side. There is obviously some titillation aspect when you are in the game and you go up some stairs. The character like kind of puts her hand on her butt to kind of prevent you from looking up her skirt. You get panty flashes when you're jumping around, and when you go to the upgrade section, which I'll talk about in a second, the mad scientist doctor has like these enormous boobs, and they act like they're a boob fiend, which is a pretty common trope in certain anime games. And so they kind of do that whole squeezy thing. So not the biggest fan of that. Again, not a prude. I am 100% not opposed to adult content or sexual content. But when it comes to like the whole younger end of the spectrum, it makes me uncomfortable, and I do not really go in for that. If we're going to do that stuff, let's make sure everybody's well above 18 and looks like a full-grown person. Okay. So, Full Metal Schoolgirl. Yeah, so you pick from one of these schoolgirls, and then you go into this building where it's full of robots, and you need to get to the top of the building in order to destroy the boss robot. There's story bits or whatever. The story is pretty weightless. They talk about, I don't know, getting revenge or something, or someone's family, or I don't even know. They talk while you're playing, and it's a little bit of just very, very light setup, which, I mean, I'm fine. It's fine that it's there, but I think the action is really kind of the focus on this one. So, you get into the building, you can choose a couple weapons in the lobby. You get like one melee weapon, one projectile weapon, and then you go into the building. And you have to fight, room to room, or floor to floor. And in each room, there's like a number of robots. And so you got to like smash them with your melee, shoot them with your gun. You've got a little drone that does a ride along with you, and you can use the drone every couple seconds. It's on a cooldown. It'll do different things. It can shoot. It can give you a shield. It can give you a boost, that type of stuff. So the gist of the game is that you want to unlock some stuff as you go. This is kind of one of those grindy roguelikes, which I'm not super in love with that whole aspect. I like the roguelike where you have a chance of winning every single time, and it's just up to how clever you are and a little bit of RNG luck. This is more of there's no way you're going to beat this the first time. You got to play it a couple times and unlock, upgrades and health and stuff. Definitely a more recent design choice in the roguelike genre. It's okay sometimes. Sometimes it's not. We can go into that another time. Here it feels like it's all right. I feel like the advances are coming pretty quickly, and a lot of it does feel skill based. So I feel like maybe I'm doing okay despite not having like the most upgrades or whatever. But you you dodge, you shoot, you get a shield, you run around. Action is pretty straightforward, but I think the graphics are cleanly abstract. Everything looks like nice and colorful and sharp. Controls fine, feels nice and tight. I'm a sucker for climbing a tower, and every 10 floors, I think it's every 10 floors, if you can clear 10 floors, you'll get a key to an elevator that's in the lobby, and then you can skip those 10 floors if you want. So if you're able to make it through floors 1 through 10, beat the boss, you'll get a key, and you can start at floor 11. So you don't have to climb all 100 floors like every single time, or 50 floors, or whatever it ends up being. So you can skip ahead if you wish. And by the time that you're ready to beat that boss, you're probably ready with a bunch of other upgrades, meaning you're tough enough to start at the higher floor, so you're not really necessarily at a disadvantage, which is fine. It's cute. I think the action's good. Getting the upgrades feels pretty significant for the most part. Every time you kind of up something, some of it are just like little, incrementals, but sometimes it really does feel different. And I've noticed pretty significantly that my survivability has gone up every time I've invested some money. I'm not sure how much of a grind it's going to be. Some of the price totals seem pretty high, so I'm like, maybe I'm going to get a money multiplier, or maybe there's some other factor coming up. But it's just one of those, I play it maybe like once or twice a day, do a couple runs, get some money, and then that's good. I'm not playing it for 8 hours at a stretch or anything, but it's interesting enough to hold my attention because I think it keeps you pretty busy. You're always dashing and jumping and moving and shooting, and there's always something to do. And if you want something to keep your hands busy and keep your mind occupied, this is a great one for that. So I'll see where it goes. It's not blowing me away, but I think it's interesting enough to see, what further developments there are. I've only gotten up to I think I've beaten the first 2 bosses, and I will say the bosses were surprisingly more difficult than the rest of the levels leading up to them. So each boss has been a pretty significant step up in terms of skill check. But I'm in the 3rd tier of levels right now, and it's going fine. I'm still having a good time. I do wonder if there's going to be any more twists or what else there's going to be. I got to the boss of the 3rd tier, and it just fucking wiped the floor with me. So I do have some grinding to do a little bit. So that's where I'm at right now. I think it's an interesting one if you like roguelikes, if you like climbing towers, which is kind of a sub genre, which I really enjoy. If you like anime stuff, if you like schoolgirls, I guess, Android, they're not really humans, whatever. Yeah, check it out. It's a good time so far. I'll report back on this one. I'm curious to see if it develops or if it just settles into the grind. I think that's really the make or break for me. I don't mind a little grind as long as you're getting new techniques, new concepts, new twists. But if it just quickly settles into, I'm going to have to just play this 100 times in order to get strong enough, I'll probably nope out. So we'll see what happens. And I guess it also depends on how many more times Boss 3 wipes the floor with me. We'll see how that goes. All right, folks, that is Full Metal Schoolgirl, playing that on the PS5. Next up, Blood West. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, Ryan Nally, who's a fantastic writer, very happy to have him aboard, just wrote a full review. So if you want to see his opinion on this, feel free. He does a great write-up, and I think he really captures what is good about the game. And I have to say, I agree. I think that Ryan and I are pretty much lockstep when it comes to Blood West. This is a first-person Western/horror title, and if you know my tastes, I love Western plus anything. I'm not really the biggest fan of just Western, but Western plus horror, Western plus sci-fi, Western plus fantasy. I'm a sucker for all Western plus. I feel like it's a great seasoning, but I don't like it all by itself. Salt is great. You put salt on something and it makes that thing taste better. But if you just have a mouthful of salt, you're like, nah, no, this is not for me. And the Old West is kind of like salt for me. I don't want a mouthful of it, but I'll put it on something and I think it makes that thing better. So in this one, you are a cowboy who is resurrected from the dead. Again, first person here. You're resurrected from the dead. You don't know what's going on. But then an indigenous person said, oh, I meant to help your spirit on to the next world, but something happened and something went awry and you came back. And so now you're here and you're undead. And now you got to help rid the land of the evil that is permeating it. Again, first person. This is, again, the low lo-fi, pixely, 2D, like PlayStation era type graphics. I think it looks good. If you like that style, I think it looks good, and it's obviously intentionally like that. It's a style choice. It works. It's grim. It's gritty. It's kind of dark. So you go through these like open areas, and this, like you're going to start this game and you're going to think it's like a shooter. I know it looks a lot like the old school kind of Doom style shooters that we've been seeing. Big resurgence in those lately, like the super fast run and gun, blow everything up type shooter. But this is like the opposite of that. It's slow. It's methodical. You have to be very aware of your surroundings. You get overwhelmed super easily. It's pretty stealthy. Like, I don't want to say it's a stealth game, but like you have to be very cautious. You'll be, know what you're walking into, look around, because you can get taken down pretty quickly. So you get a couple quests right off the bat, and then you're just kind of set loose to do like whatever you want. You'll come across like big zombies or whatever they are, monsters or something. There's several different types of monsters. They all have their own strengths and weaknesses. But you'll eventually come into, some train tracks. You follow the tracks, you get to the town, and then it's like this abandoned western town full of monsters, and you're just like being careful the whole time. Like, you're just really watching out. You've got limited ammo, limited life. You can go back to a campsite to refresh yourself, but then it resets all the monsters. Definitely taking a cue from Dark Souls there. But it's not a Souls-like. I wouldn't say it's a Souls-like at all. You're just kind of, just being very cautious. And if you learn the systems and learn how to mind yourself, you take out a monster, excuse me, be careful, look around, take out another monster, be careful, like listen, look for clues, look for who's around. You can go a pretty long time without having to go back to a campfire, because you don't really want to do that, like, because it just resets everybody. And with your limited ammo, limited supplies, like it's kind of a losing proposition to play it that way. So you really want to try to go as long as you can between bonfire resting. And so you just got to be very, it's very immersive in the sense of like, if I was here in the Old West and I only had my one life, how careful would I be? Like, that's how careful you have to play it. So you don't want to just go charging into buildings. You want to like look in windows first. You want to look through open doors. You want to listen a little bit, creep around a building before you, case the building a little bit, and kind of just slowly approach the whole thing. It's dense, it's heavy, it's methodical, and it's deadly. But I think it's pretty cool. I dig it. I love the vibe. Horror Western is pretty cool. I love the approach of just having like so much, the areas are not huge, but like you have so much freedom to approach things in the way you want to. Am I going to come from the left, from the right? Am I going to circle around back? Whatever I want to do. And just kind of just being in this world and like struggling to survive is a thing that we haven't had a lot of lately. I feel like we kind of like come and go, and these kind of trends, come and go. And we haven't had something that feels like this, in my perspective, in quite a while. So I think Blood West is slowing down the tempo, slowing down the pace, but increasing the stakes, increasing the tension. It's not a first-person psychological horror, because I'm so tired of those. It's not run and gun action. It's not a Doom style shooter. It's kind of got its own little space where it's like, it's kind of a little bit of all those things, but also none of those things. And if you're looking for something to really challenge you, like if you want something that you've really got to lean into to succeed at, I think this is that type of game. It's rough. It's going to drag you over the coals. You're going to die a bunch. It's difficult. And I have not finished, not even close to finishing this game. Full disclosure, not even close. This game demands a lot from you, and it's one of those like takes your full focus type things. So if you really want something to like immerse yourself into, you really want to get in this like gross horror Western world and like learn how to survive and scrape for every minute of survival, this is your jam. I think it does what it does very specifically and very well. This is not going to be for everybody, but if it is for you, you're probably going to eat it up with a spoon and think it's delicious. I think it's great. Ryan also really liked it a lot, and if this is the kind of situation that is sounding promising to you, you definitely should check it out. It does what it does well, and we just don't get a lot of these days. So Blood West it's a thing, man. It's kind of a trip. Get ready to die, but I think that you'll enjoy it. If you like those rough experiences, triumphing over that roughness, this is your jam right now. So thumbs up to Blood West. Just know what you're getting into. All right, through the magic of podcasting, it is now the next day. I have time traveled. You have not. Life occurred, and so I had to put a pause on this. But I'm back, and really, I could have said nothing, and you would have been none the wiser. That's how honest I am, folks. I'm just letting you know. A couple peeks behind the curtain here and there never hurts anybody. Okay, 2 games left to go in this late arriving Thanksgiving era show. And you're in for a little bit of treat because not only are the last 2 games absolute winners, I'm going to have a full review for both. I finished both, which is kind of a surprise to me and probably to you, although I'm not sure you were expecting anything, so you might not be surprised. First game, Silly Polly Beast, Polly. Silly Polly Beast. This came out of nowhere from a PR rep, and they were just like, yo, check out this game, and, that's what game critics do. But I heard no buzz about it, and to be perfectly frank, the PR copy didn't really sell me that much, and the trailer, it looked okay, interesting, but it didn't get me hyped and on fire. So I pitched it to the team at Game Critics, and we've got, altogether, even though some people are way more active than others, we've probably got, I don't know, 30 different people writing for us at any given time. And so I pitched it to the folks, and I'm like, yo, here's this game, looks kind of interesting. Anybody up for this? Crickets, nothing. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll let it ride another week. Because sometimes, people are busy, life goes on, and I'll pitch something to the team sometimes, and I won't get any bites. But then a week later, somebody will show up and be like, yo, you still got that game that you talked about last week? I had life going on, and I wasn't able to do it, but now I want to do it. That's pretty common. I get a lot of people who'll come to the table a week or even 2 weeks afterwards and go, yo, is that game still available? I'm free now, or I'm in a better place now, or I finished my finals, or whatever it is. My wife had a baby, anything along those lines. And so I waited and nothing. And I pitched it a little harder. I kind of gave it a little bit of a nudge because I'm like, I don't know. I think this is from a solo developer, or if not a solo developer, then a solo developer plus a couple of freelancers or something. Seemed like a pretty small, very small team. And we here at Game Critics like to support those folks, and so we try to get it out there. And honestly, it looked okay. It wasn't, I'm super busy. I got a lot on my plate, so it takes kind of a lot to move the needle for me. But it did seem like something maybe that we would cover in general, or maybe in a less busy time, I probably would have gone for it. But nothing. And we are just about passing the time at which I would feel not guilty about asking for a code. I hate going to somebody a month later and being like, yo, you got any of those games left? Because I feel like a jerk. Because, it's all about timeliness, and people want the launch day coverage and all that stuff. And we just can't deliver that sometimes. Life, busy. Everybody who writes at Game Critics has a job or a family or another, something going on, schooling or whatever. So we do cover all the games that we take, but we cannot promise to cover them in a timely fashion. So anyway, I circle back to the PR person, and I'm like, yo, nobody on the team took it on, but I'll do it. I can talk about it in the podcast, and I'll just bang it out real quick, and maybe it'll be worth something. So I get the code, and I download it a couple days ago, whatever, and right off the bat, I'm like, oh, okay, wait a minute. This actually is kind of surprising me a little bit. It immediately grabbed me as being better and more interesting than the trailer, better and more interesting than the PR copy I got. And I'm like, oh, okay. This is, definitely something that I might want to check into. I'm glad that I did. And overall, spoiler, I am glad that I did. I think this game is pretty fantastic. This is one of those nice surprises where... I didn't have high expectations. Not saying that to be insulting or anything, but sometimes you see a game and you're like, oh, that looks amazing. Or sometimes you're like, could be fun. Or sometimes you're like, maybe. And so once I jumped into it, I was really, really surprised. So what the fuck is it? It is a third-person real-time game. There's a lot of action in it, a lot of action combat, dodging, using a gun, using a melee weapon, which is your skateboard. There's also very, very light stealth elements. I hesitate to even use that word because I think it carries a lot of baggage, especially for people who don't like stealth. And I don't want to call it a stealth game because that might discourage people who might like it otherwise. But there are a few places where it's wiser to sneak by somebody than to engage with them, or sometimes there is a sneaky way to get through something rather than doing it head on. So those options exist. I don't think you ever need to do any kind of stealth of any kind, but I think oftentimes it's the preferable route. Um, there's also a lot of story told through cutscenes. There are branching endings, and essentially this is a story about Polly. When we start off, we're not really quite sure what's going on. She is a girl who is escaping from an orphanage set in Eastern Europe somewhere. I don't know what country it is, but definitely Eastern Europe. You can tell by the vibes, you can tell by the dialogue, you can tell by the setting. It's got all of the telltale, like Eastern Europe, kind of like oppressive. Everybody is hard. Life is hard. This sucks. You've got to just kind of survive any way you can. That's a pretty common theme in a lot of Eastern European games. And I have been playing more of those lately, so I'm really kind of developing a nose for them. And a taste for them, honestly. I think a lot of them are quite good. So she's escaping from this orphanage, and she's supposed to meet her friend, who's also escaping from the orphanage. She goes to the appointed meeting place, and the friend doesn't show up. And so she's getting depressed. She's getting worried. She stays there for like a while. The friend apparently didn't make it out of the orphanage. They had a plan. They're not sure what happened. So she's feeling feelings about this. And then at some point, I forget exactly how it happens, but she gets sucked into like this alternate dimension. And in this alternate dimension, it is like a really twisted version of reality. It's just very abstract, dark, lots of weird shapes all over the place, monsters. But it also kind of does look like our world a little bit too. And she meets this person, thing, demon, creature, something, who's trapped. It's trapped in this golden cage, and it has spikes through its body, and it has 3 prominent locks that are keeping it in place. Looks a little bit like an Iron Maiden, but not quite, but something along those lines. And so that thing in the cage says, yo, I brought you here to help me. We can help each other, actually. You give me what I want, I'll give you what you want, and you can go back to, the real world and do, meet your friend or whatever. But you've got to unlock me first. So this is all very strange and abstract and surreal, but because, it actually, as I'm telling it, like, I'm like, okay, so why would she do this? But like when you play the game, like it all kind of comes together really well. Like the vibes work and the scene is kind of working, and it all just, it happens nicely. So Polly agrees to help this creature, and the way that she helps this creature is by killing 3 demons that are in this dark world. She has to kill these 3 demons. Each one she kills one of the locks will release, and then when she releases this other demon, she'll get what she wants, and the demon will be free. As I'm sure you can guess, this seems like a very loaded deal, and trusting random demons is not generally a recommended thing. But, the state that she's in, the emotional turmoil she's having, she just escaped, her friend didn't show up, she wasn't sure what's going on, she feels a little bit lost, and it all kind of comes together to make sense that she's in this alternate dimension. So she sets off to do these things. I'm not going to get into all the individual details, but, she can walk around there are top-down sections or like isometric sections. There are some 2D sections. I think the graphics are really nice. They're very highly stylized and simple. They kind of look like, I don't know, PS2 era graphics or something like that, intentionally so. It's a style choice, and I think it works. So Polly will go through these different scenarios. I'm not going to spoil anything, but she has to choose to help certain people or not help certain people, and she gets faced with a lot of choices that seem sketchy at best, and so kind of a lot of this is just like depending on what you want to do. But as the game goes on, we learn more about Polly, and we learn more about like why life in the orphanage was so bad, why did they want to leave, and ultimately we find out more plot twists are revealed. I'm not going to say anything because I think the way that the story unfolds is really nicely done. It's very elegant. It's not, and it's a good balance too. I feel like it was enough story to keep me going, yet it wasn't so much story that it was up its own ass. Like it kind of kept the focus on staying light, but just juicy enough to keep you interested. Focusing on a lot of the action. You'll be fighting a lot of monsters with your skateboard. You have a skateboard at first. You're whacking them with the skateboard. You'll pick up a gun soon afterwards, and the gun replenishes by doing melee attacks, I believe. And so you go back and forth between melee and shooting. It all works well. It's pretty simple combat. At times it can get pretty intense. If there's any criticism I have of the game, and I have very few criticisms, I think that number one, the combat doesn't really evolve that much, which is okay. I don't really need it to be Devil May Cry, and I don't need like combos and all this kind of stuff. But getting a couple more weapons as the game goes on, stronger melee weapons, I think would have been appreciated. There's not a lot of options. Like you get the skateboard for melee, you get a pistol, you later get a submachine gun, I believe. You also get a shotgun, and then finally, one of the hidden weapons is a gun that shoots stakes, like wooden stakes, which is pretty good. Use that one for the end game. So pretty limited options. You get grenades as well, but I think at least one more melee option would have been good, just to kind of keep pace with the rising strength of enemies as the game goes on. But you'll solve very light puzzles. You will engage in some skateboarding. Skateboarding sections can be pretty tough. They're reflex based, where you're kind of going through these long hallways and dodging and jumping and avoiding obstacles and stuff like that. But but it all works. And the thing, I think one of the strengths about this game is it's kind of just like the story, where it gives you just enough to keep it moving. I think the action does just enough to keep it moving too. Like you're always doing something slightly different. Once you've got the handle on like the skateboarding, you don't really do it again for quite a while, which is fine. Once you've got a handle on the combat, you'll go to like a lighter section where there's maybe only one enemy and you're doing some puzzle. Once you're done with the puzzle, you'll do some non-combat section where you're maybe just figuring something out. Once you're done with that, you might go back to combat. Like the developer has a very good sense of pace and a really good eye for what's going on. They don't ever really linger anywhere too long, and I feel like that was really one of the strengths. I just felt like every time I got to do something, when I felt like I was good on that section, the developer somehow knew I was good on that section, and we moved on to something else. I think overall, really superb pacing. The only ding I would put on that is late in the game, the developer decides to keep on with the theme of variety and does something different by taking us to a section which is very puzzle heavy, reminiscent of kind of being stuck in the Resident Evil mansion, where you've got a lot of doors that need keys, and some of the keys are in weird shapes. And there's actually a lot of story in that section, and I feel like the strongest story beat of the game comes there. And I gotta say, it was a good one. It kind of took my breath away when it happened. I'm not going to reveal anything. No spoilers, don't worry. Because it's not going to mean anything unless you play the game. But like, man, when they got to that story reveal, I was like, oh shit. So in that sense, it was worth it. But I feel like that section, the Resident Evil mansion locked door key fetching section, it went on for too long. To be fair, it's not a huge area. There's probably ultimately like maybe 16 rooms or something like that, and a couple hallways. But there's a couple mitigating factors. There's a couple things in that section that I found were kind of irritating, and it can get easy to be turned around. That is the one and only time in the game that I had to look for a walkthrough. And in fact, there are several walkthroughs that are just about that one section of the game and nothing else. Because I don't really think you need it anywhere else. Otherwise, I think the signposting is really good. I think the pace is really good. I always knew where to go. There's a fast travel section if you need it. It just really works. And I think it was just the Resident Evil section that the developer kind of leaned into it too far. I think the story beat was strong enough. We didn't need the really long build up to it in that section. I didn't need the 27 different locked doors and the 16 different keys and the going back and forth. And I hesitate to dwell on it too much because I don't want people to not play this game because of that section. But I think that was the worst section of the game and it went on too long. But other than that, one section I think is okay. Get a walkthrough, just buzz through it. But I think ultimately the game is pretty incredible. I really enjoyed the variety, the pace, the themes, the tone. I like the story a lot. I think the story beats when they come in are really powerful. There's a lot here about what a person would do, how a person handles themselves, how they relate to others, how do you live your life the right way, like, and what does that even mean? And there's like a lot to chew on here. I feel like you could probably write a thesis paper about the stuff that goes on in this game and how it's represented on screen. I know I'm being kind of vague, but I really feel like if I said more than that, I'd be spoiling some of this, and half the beauty of this game is like how things unfold. So I think overall, pretty marvelous game. I really liked how it ended. I really liked the rising action before we got to the climax and everything. It's just a great title, and I think that nobody's playing it. I don't think anybody's paying attention to it. I haven't heard anybody in my game circles talking about it. I think I'm the only one that I know in my circle of game intelligentsia who's given it the time of day. And I almost didn't do it. To be fair, it's not like I was championing this game. I said at the beginning, I almost gave it a pass, and no one on the team picked it up. I think the PR just doesn't capture what's good about it or why people should play it. So that's a thing. One other just quick disclosure. This game does rely on reflexes at certain points. There are a couple combat sections which can be pretty tricky. A couple of the bits I thought were challenging. And after the fact, there was always something there that I missed. Like there was like I could have done this one thing and that would have helped by removing some of the enemies, or I could have gone around them. I just didn't notice right off the bat, and I chose to fight them instead of going around. But there are a couple places where you just have to fight, and those places can be tricky. So if you are a person who does not do well with reflexes or twitch combat, it might be a challenge to get through some of those sections. There are difficulty sliders, but even on the easiest difficulty, those, like a handful, it's like maybe 2 or 3 sections in the entire game where I felt like the combat went a little bit too hard. I think those are just something you should be aware of. So if you struggle with that, those might be a problem for you. I will also say the skateboarding sections can be quite difficult, but the developer gives the option to let you pass them if you fail once. And you will fail once. Everybody will fail at least once. I failed it many times, but I got through them. But if you don't want to hassle with the skateboarding, you fail once and it just says, would you like to walk? And you can choose yes or no. It doesn't affect the story at all. So I appreciate that. But overall, pretty powerful story, pretty powerful game coming from Eastern Europe and this small team of developers. They've got a lot to say. It feels like a pretty personal story. And I really I just liked it a hell of a lot more than I thought I was going to. Couldn't really put it down once I started playing it. Finished it in like 2 days, and that's pretty unusual for me. I think overall maybe we're talking 6, no more than 8 hours, depending. Pretty fantastic stuff. So if you want something that's a little bit off the beaten path, something that's a little dark, something that's a little nihilistic, but also has glimmers of hope in it, and provides something a little bit different than we normally get with that Eastern European angle. Definitely worth your time. Definitely worth checking out. It's going to be something I'll be thinking about for a while. So Silly Poly Beast, full review, finished it. I'm going to give this the official So Video Game score of an 8. There you go. Full review. All right, last game of the show, Dispatch. This one, it will also be a full review. I just finished it last night. Stayed up way too late playing this game, which is a good sign. It's been quite a while since I can say that a game hooked me so hard that I really did a very foolish thing and lost out on some much needed sleep in order to roll credits. But it was worth it. It was a great game. Spoiler, love this game. I think it's great. I'm not going to keep it in suspense on this one, and I will, again, have a full review score at the end. First, before we get into the game, shout out to the Gaming in the Wild Dispatch. No, Gaming in the Wild Dispatch? Jesus, Dispatch on the brain. The Gaming in the Wild Discord. Fuck. Someone please pass me a second cup of coffee. Shout out to the Gaming in the Wild Discord and John over there, good friend John. I had seen Dispatch, but I didn't know a lot about it. And at first I thought it was PC only. I didn't realize it had come to basically all the platforms. But I didn't hear a lot of buzz right off the bat. But then in the Gaming in the Wild Discord, some people were talking about it. And whenever a hot game comes down the pike, John will set up a separate channel. And it seemed like he was getting a lot of play. So I wasn't reading it because I didn't want to spoil myself. But I kind of was just keeping tabs. I'd pop in for a second to see what's going on. And it seemed like it was getting a lot of love. So that really caught my attention. John's got some good folks over at Gaming in the Wild. Just like we got good folks over here at So Video Games. We're both great folks, and I think there's a lot of cross-pollination happening there. But I do keep an eye in specific places to kind of see like what I should be paying attention to, what I should be playing. And Gaming in the Wild is one of the ones that I keep an eye on. So if you're not a fan of that show, if you're not in the Discord, you should do that. Shameless plug for John and his lovely offerings. It's great stuff for sure. I'm a fan. So I looked into it and I'm like, oh shit, I can get it on PlayStation. That's great. I don't have to wait. I thought it was PC only. So I jump into it, paid full price. This has been, side note, just, being a stingy bastard, I rarely pay full price for games. And so it's got to be something that's really dynamite. But for whatever reason, I've broken that rule several times this year, usually because I want to be in the zeitgeist on something, or maybe we just didn't get a code for whatever. I've seen a surprising number of games this year just not really bother with PR or do like a very, very, very limited amount of PR, which is not normally the way it goes. I mean, usually PR people are out there trying to get the word out, but there were a couple of fairly high profile titles this year that just didn't really do the huge PR that I expected. Hades 2 had very small PR outreach. I don't think Hollow Knight Silksong did any. I don't recall anybody doing any PR for Dispatch at all. Maybe I'm wrong on that one, but I don't recall anything. So this is one of the ones where I'm like, oh, fuck, I got to pay for this fucking game. Okay. And again, this is what your Patreon money goes to. Your Patreon money, if you support it, helps me buy these games that I play for the show and talk about them right here. There you go. Anyway, so I'm like, okay, this seems like a worthwhile purchase. I'm going to jump in, despite not quite getting what's going on here. I've heard some tell, and I haven't confirmed this, so it could just be wild speculation, but I've heard that the developers originally intended this to be a TV show, and so the deal fell through or something. If anybody has details on that, let me know. But that's kind of what I was picking up from a quick glance at things. Maybe that's wrong, but that was the buzz. And it makes perfect sense because I think this is absolutely TV quality material. It would be a great show if it was a TV show, but it's not. It's a game, although it is still kind of a TV show. What the fuck is Dispatch? I'll tell you. It is a dispatching game. There are many of these, actually. I don't know that people really realize that, but there's several games that are mechanically like the gameplay section of Dispatch. But Dispatch is broken up into two halves. Maybe like three quarters and 1 quarter. 1 quarter is the gameplay. And just full disclosure, cards on the table, there's not a whole lot of gameplay in this game. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. The gameplay section is you play a dispatcher at a superhero company where they rent their people out to do various jobs. You can subscribe to the Superhero Dispatch Network, or SDN, for a monthly fee. And then when you call, my cat's stuck in a tree, I need someone to escort me to the airport because someone's trying to kill me, my house is on fire, there's aliens, a kaiju showed up on my beach, like whatever it is, you call the SDN and they'll dispatch some appropriate hero to go help you out with your thing. So you play one of the dispatchers. You are a former hero who has hit some hard times, and you are not heroing at the moment. And so you are working a desk job. You got a headset, you got a computer, you're dispatching these heroes. And so you look at a map of the area. I don't know, it's like fake California or something like that. I feel like it is. And you'll see these little hotspots pop up, like an exclamation point. You click on it and it'll be like a job. One will say like, oh, my cat's in a tree. And you've got 6 or 7 heroes to dispatch. And so you look at them all, like what are their stats? What are their abilities? What are their preferences? What are they good at? What are they bad at? And then you choose, however many, and jobs can range between 1 to 4 heroes. Small jobs, 1 hero, large jobs, 4 heroes. And you pick somebody. So you can be like, okay, hero number 1, I'm going to click on this. You go help this lady with her cat. And then while you're doing that, another job will pop up and it's like, oh, my bank's getting robbed. Help me out. And you're like, okay, this is like a 3-person job. So heroes 2, 3, and 4, you guys go over here and do that. And then the heroes will fly off. You'll see them traveling the map and you'll see how long it takes them to get there. They'll get to the job. There'll be like a little countdown while they solve the situation. Sometimes there are extenuating circumstances, sometimes not. Then they'll come back to base, rest, they'll be inactive for a while. And so the meat of the gameplay is you are managing your team and trying to find out the best synergies, who's best for what. You'll level them up as they go on. And then when they, you have to manage your time because you can't just constantly send them out. Like they need a little bit of a break after they do a job. And so sometimes a job will come in and you don't have anybody, or the people you have available are the wrong people. So you got to let those ones slide. Because when you fail a job, the consequences I feel like are pretty severe. A superhero, if they fail a job by being incompatible, wrong powers, or they just had bad luck or something, the first time they fail a job, they'll lose stats. That means they are less able to complete the next job. And then if they fail a second job, they will get injured, which means they are removed from your roster for the rest of the session. And being down even one character really hurts a lot. Like there's a lot going on. A lot of jobs popping up, a lot of things to be taken care of, and you really need like all hands on deck all the time. So that's what the gameplay section is like. There are several games out there that are like this. I think the most prominent one, I think it's called like 911 Dispatcher, but there's also like Police Dispatcher. There's also I've played a couple like this before. There's some that are about Miami Vice style cops. If you don't know what Miami Vice is, go ahead and Google it. Philip Michael Thomas and Don Johnson, no socks, that kind of a thing, pastel colors. So there's several of these, and I've played them off and on. But the problem with this genre in general is that usually they're not suited for console. They're usually built for PC, and so the screens are usually pretty small. The text is usually pretty small, and it's just kind of annoying to play them. And so I kind of bounce out of most of these. I don't think I've ever finished one before. But I think that the Dispatch people were smart. They made it big. They made it easy to see. In general, I think the UI is pretty good, although I do have some issues with the mechanics of it. But I think it's much more approachable. It's easy to play. It's not painful. You can read the text. It's all good. Iconography is good. So I think that's really well done. I'm going to keep talking about the gameplay section here for a minute, and we'll get to the story in a second. I think the problems that I had with the gameplay are that sometimes it just was really vague about what some of these jobs wanted. One of the most notable examples was somebody called in and said, "Hey, I need you to stand in this line. I'm at a video game store," or something like that. I want you to stand in this line and don't look like a narc or whatever. Or maybe it was a drug buy. That would make more sense. And so, stand in a line. That's not even a super request. Like, anybody can do that. So I send somebody to go stand on it, somebody who didn't have anything else to do, and they fail it and they get injured. And I'm like, what the fuck? And it's not until after the jobs are done that you find out what it was that you should have done. So the job was described as go stand in a line, but what it really needed was a very high mobility ability. And to me, mobility is like flying or running fast or getting someplace quickly from A to B, which is like the fucking opposite of standing in a line where you're standing and not going anywhere. So why would I need a mobility stat? I ended up feeling like a lot of the jobs, I just couldn't suss them out. I was like taking a blind guess at some of these, and I failed a lot. And I feel like in general, I performed really poorly in a lot of these sections. I often had the wrong hero for the wrong job. I often had the right hero was busy somewhere else and not available. Sometimes I just didn't understand like what the problem was, like why they were not a good fit. And I don't feel like the game really gives you enough information. They give you just this vague description, but I feel like surfacing a little bit more would be great, making it more of like an analysis rather than a gut check kind of feeling. At the end of each section, they give you a performance rating, like, oh, you perform better than so many players. I was always at the bottom. I don't know what it was about. Maybe I kind of want to play this game again just to see if I could do better this time. Even though I rolled credits, and I don't think that your gameplay affects the story in that way. I don't think there's a better ending or anything like that. But I don't know. I just felt bad that I just fucked these up like so often and so hard, and I just couldn't ever really get the hang of it. Like there was a couple sessions where I'm like, okay, this is going well, finishing jobs, completing things, that's all good. But man, for most of it, I really struggled, and I maybe it's me. I'm not going to blame the game that it's all its fault. Maybe it's my head. Maybe I'm just not clicking onto the vibe they wanted me to click with. But I often felt like I needed more info. The info I got was too vague, and I just didn't have enough resources to make the correct decision. So, for example, another example was at the end of the game, they say, oh, you sent the absolute perfect hero X amount of times. And over the course of the game, 8 chapters, at least 2 gameplay sections per chapter. So that's 16 chapters of gameplay and multiple jobs for each one. I don't even know how many that comes out to. Probably more than, I don't know, 150 or something like that. I'm not a math guy, but there's a lot. It said I sent the perfect hero to the perfect job 8 times. Like that's such a small number. I'm like, damn, I fuck this up constantly. Like something about this wasn't making sense in my head. So that was kind of a bummer. I wanted to do better at the gameplay sections, and I just didn't. Maybe your experience, if you've played this, is different. If you haven't played it, maybe, I don't know, take a look at it, read up on it or something before you play. But that was kind of a bummer. I really wanted to do better, and I felt like, in general, I've got pretty good game skills. Not like I'm a pro or anything, but, I've been playing games for fucking 40 years. I feel like I'm pretty okay at playing games, and this is certainly not my first time around the block. But, man, I bombed pretty hard on this. That said, it's pretty lucky for me that I feel like most of the story beats are related to choices that you make in the cutscenes and not something that happens in the gameplay. So big sigh of relief there. Let's talk about the story. And frankly, the story is really the only reason to play this game. I mean, the dispatch gameplay is fine. It feels a little bit, I don't know, excuse me, unpolished, or, to my eye anyway. It could use a little bit of tweaking. Oh, one thing I got to mention though, just quickly, when you're doing the gameplay sections, something is really fucked up about the controls. I'm playing on PlayStation, and I think the developers really missed a trick, because there's a menu for your heroes at the bottom, and then there's the map on the top, and it just felt fucking wonky as hell. Like, if your cursor's on the bottom, controlled by the left thumbstick, and then you want to go to one of the jobs, you have to like physically move the cursor underneath the map icon that you want to go to. Like, it doesn't just pop to the map and choose the first available one. You've got to be in the right section. So often my cursor, like, I'd be looking at a hero on the left side of the screen, and then I would want to go up to a job, and these all have countdown timers. You got to get to them in a hurry. And then the cursor wouldn't appear, or like it would appear in the wrong section. And I'm like, dude, this is fucked up. I don't know why they didn't fix this, but like, they need to fix that part. That was a bugaboo throughout the entire game. I couldn't stand it. Very annoying. And I was often struggling to just get my cursor in the right place. And that sucks because you're on a time limit. I will also say quickly, there were a number of times when someone was talking and then someone else would start talking, or maybe I'd be in the middle of a job getting a brief, and then something would happen. And I didn't realize it at the time, but like when you get your end of chapter breakdowns, which I'll mention in a second, it'll say, oh, you failed to meet the brain teasers challenge. And I go, what challenge? Like, the guy talked, but I didn't get a choice because I was in the middle of something else. I think there's a little bit of bugginess going on. It's not huge, but I failed a number of not chapters, but tasks or challenges. And I saw at the end of the game that a lot of other people failed those too. They tell you what the breakdown is. And so I think that maybe there's some kind of bug happening where something gets triggered, but you're not actually ready to do it. And so it kind of marks it as a fail because you're doing something else. And that doesn't seem like it should happen that way. So I think there's a couple of technical things that developers need to look at in that respect. I think that part of it needs some work. Okay, anyway, back to the story. It's awesome. This story is awesome. I love it. And that's really the reason when you play. The other 3/4 of the game outside of the dispatch gameplay is basically like watching a TV show, a super well animated, well produced TV show with like professional voice actors and fantastic writing. You are in the shoes of the dispatcher, and he's going through a really rough time. He used to be a superhero. He lost his powers. I'm going to be very vague on details here because I don't want to spoil anything, because the story is really the reason to play. But you take this job, and so he's dealing with that. He gets assigned a team, and they all are former villains, and so they are kind of like the fuck-ups of the company. He's got like the hardest, most thankless job to get these people in shape, and so he's working on that. And it's a very prickly relationship at first because he was a hero and they were villains. And so that doesn't really go too well. And none of them are team players, and that doesn't go too well. And they just are very sullen and just unhappy. And it's very difficult, very difficult. But over the course of the 8 episodes, he gets to know them. He sets a good example for them. They teach him a few things. They let him into their circle a little bit. And they kind of become a close-knit team. I'm not going to say it's like revolutionary in terms of the content, but what I will say is it's extremely well written. And I think that this is the perfect kind of content that proves you don't need to reinvent the wheel in order to tell a compelling story. I loved the characters. I think all the character design was great. I think it was a good mix of people on the team. The writing felt really real and relatable. Lots of like one-liners and lots of banter back and forth, but it didn't feel forced. It didn't feel super fake. I mean, it felt like I could see these people saying these things, and it all tracked, like it all felt pretty normal. So I think the characters are extremely well done. I felt feelings for these people. I had my favorites. I had my not favorites. I was mad when things didn't go my way. I was proud when we had a big win. Just the ups and the downs and the amount of conversations they have with each other, I think are pretty fantastic. There was lots of choices as you go through the story. Like you'll talk to somebody and they'll give you like 2 or 3 choices usually. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Or do you do something different? Or sometimes there's actions, for example, someone kisses you. Do you back away? Do you lean in, or do you apologize, or whatever? Like you'll get these choices to kind of guide your relationships as you go through. And I just thought it was all really, really, really well done. I would absolutely watch this if it was just a TV show. You know, if it ran on a channel and it was just like a half an hour episode of a TV show every week, I'd be down, dude. I would watch the fuck out of this. And it does, to be real, it does feel like an awesome TV show bolted onto a less less than awesome gameplay section. I mean, I'm not bagging on it. I mean, I guess I kind of am, but the story is like amazing and fun and cool and exciting, and the gameplay is like it's cool. I like it, but it needs work, and you know, I wasn't great at it, and I feel like it's a little bit rough. So the story though is absolutely great. I could not stop playing this game. I would finish one episode, like doing one more. I gotta watch one more. Gotta see what happens. Gotta see what's going on here, and it just is great. There's lots of cool moments, lots of fun moments, lots of. It's just a really well done show. I love it. I don't want to even spoil anything, because I think if I spoiled it, it would be a terrible thing. I will say that at the end of the game, there are a couple choices which do guide. I don't want to make it sound like you're not making choices. You are, but I don't think the gameplay affects the story choices. I think the story choices affect the story, and I'm not sure how widely the game branches. Looking at the quality of the writing, how much voice acting there is, how much raw time they had to animate, I can't imagine that it varied that much. I feel like you're probably going to start at the same starting point. You're going to end at the same ending point, and you might have some variation along the way. Not a criticism, because the quality of what they deliver is amazing. I would watch this even if there were no variations, but I know there's a few. And especially at the end, there's a couple that kind of pay it forward, like what you said in chapter 2 comes forward in chapter 8, what you did in chapter 5 comes forward in chapter 8. So there are some choices that do matter, but I think ultimately they're going to tell you the story that they want to tell, and it's a great one. I loved it. I fucking loved it. Like the banter, the hanging out, the ribbing, the ups and the downs. I was super addicted to this. I love these characters. I think it's great. The writing is just super tippy tops. I mean, I've done some writing. I've played a lot of games of writing. I've watched a lot of writing. I spend a lot of time thinking about writing. I edit a lot of writing. Writing is something that is often on my mind, and I feel like the writing here is excellent. Very excellent. Very few problems with the writing at all. I thought it was outstanding. Vocal deliveries, amazing. Everybody feels real, and it's all good. Timing is great. The voice director did a fantastic job. Just everything about it just oozes quality, top notch all the way through. I loved it. I just really loved it. But you know, but full disclosure, and this is not a criticism at all, but just know that if you're going to play Dispatch, it's going to be like 3/4 watching a fucking amazing cartoon superhero TV show, which also does have adult themes. There was actually a surprising amount of nudity, which I did not expect, both male and female, and there are some heavier themes. There is definitely some violence as well. So this is not for kids. Definitely an adult show. It's not as bloody as something like Invincible. And it's not as sexy as something that you would get on Steam, but like it definitely there's elements of it there, right? So just know that. But it is ultimately a 3/4 watching and 1/4 playing experience. So if you are a person who does not like to just watch, just know that. But what you're getting here is a fucking amazing experience, and I think it's great because it really shows what games can do, right? Games can be first-person shooting, they can be scary, they can be couch co-op chaos, you know, and they can be they can be an interactive story where you touch the story, you interact in just very certain ways, but the story being told here is emotional. You're getting to know these characters, you're getting to see these characters in a slightly different way. This is something that I think only a video game can do, and it just is just great. I think there's room under the umbrella for all kinds of video games, and I think this is an excellent one. I loved it. I loved it. I had so much fun. I could not tear myself away. And like I said, I stayed up way too fucking late last night. I stayed up stupid late last night, knowing that I was going to get up hella early today. And I did it anyway. And I'm like, damn it. It's fine. It was worth it because fuck, I love this game. So here's the deal. This is the official review. Finished the game last night, like I said. So if we're talking technically, cutscenes are amazing. Animation amazing. Production amazing. Gameplay a little less amazing. I had some control issues. There were some bugs where I felt like those things didn't happen the right way. I also felt like I just had like some weird obfuscation about some of the systems, and I felt like I failed way more often than I wanted to or should have. So I feel like the gameplay needs a little bit of a boost for sure. It's not terrible. I like it. I would do more of it, but it needs a boost. The cutscene section, amazing. So I feel like in general, I would give this game an 8 because I feel like the gameplay isn't as good as the cutscenes. But I love the cutscenes so fucking much, and I love the writing so fucking much. And I had such a great time that I'm doing the reviewers just preferential spin and giving it an extra 0.5 just because I love it. And so 8.5 for Dispatch official So Videogames review. All right, folks, game portion of the show is officially done, but like many folks, I do spend a few minutes a week in front of screens that don't have menus or life bars. That's right, it is time for the TV and movie roundup. Just a couple things this week. First off, my quest to continue watching all of the cartoons I did not finish watching as a child. That's still going on. A bit of a divergence this week, though. I started watching Centurions, which, to be perfectly frank, was never one of my favorites growing up. I was very aware of it. I was aware of the TV show and aware of the toys, but I did not think the toys were that great, and I did not think the show was that great either. But I needed to watch something. I had a nighttime slot where I kept finding myself regularly having a half an hour in the evening time when nothing else was going on. But my wife has been watching a lot of these cartoons with me. She grew up, well, I'm not going to get into the details. She had a very shitty childhood. Let's just say that. Fucked up childhood. And because of that, she did not get to watch a lot of these cartoons when she was growing up. So she's not as nostalgic for the 80s in terms of like action figures and stuff as I am. But I think there's definitely a little bit of discovery on her part, like seeing what she missed out on. And she's kind of curious about a lot of the shows she didn't get to watch as a kid and stuff like that. So a lot of the prime stuff I'm saving to watch with her. We're watching Inspector Gadget right now, as a matter of fact. I'm not going to talk about that one this week, but we are watching Inspector Gadget. We're about like a third of the way through the series. That was one she was curious about and felt like she missed out on. So I'm saving that to watch with her. But Centurions, I'm like, okay, this was, honestly, I never really was a big fan of it. So I can watch this. And if the wife is not around when I watch it, it's no big deal because it's kind of a crappy cartoon and she's not going to be interested in this one anyway. So I'm going to watch this one because it's like, it's safe to watch without your partner because your partner doesn't want to watch it. And if you have a partner, you probably get what I'm saying. Because if you watch a show that your partner likes and they're not there, that's cheating. That's emotional cheating. Fuck that. You got to watch your favorite shows with your partner. You do not watch a partner show when the partner's not there. You know, if you know, you know. You know what I'm saying? If you know, you know. So Centurions is about 3 guys, a land guy, a sea guy, and an air guy. And they have these special suits that have holes on them. It's like a big like jumpsuit with holes on the arms and legs and chest. It's kind of like armor, but it's also kind of just like a suit with a bunch of holes in it. And you're not seeing like their chest or anything. Like it's like they have a full suit, but then they have like an extra suit on top of it. They call it their exosuit or something like that. And so what happens is there's an orbiting satellite where a lady works up there, and she has a pet orangutan, which you think might provide hijinks and fun, but it's actually kind of boring. So she's up there with a bunch of like high-tech gear, and these guys will be like, yo, I'm about to do this combat. I need my suit. And so the lady in the satellite will collect whatever suit they request. They each have several different suits, and she'll beam them down like Star Trek teleport style, and they'll plug into the holes on their suits, which is exactly how the toy worked, right? This is one of those 80s cartoons that exists solely to sell a toy. So like the guys will go, power extreme, I think is what they say. And they'll put their arms out, and then these mechanical pieces will show up, they'll materialize, and then they'll go chung, 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 and just kind of like, stick onto their body. So like the air guy will get a jetpack and missiles on his arms and boosters on his legs. The sea guy gets a fin on his chest. He gets water jets, turbines or something like that on his legs. Something else on his back. I don't know, backpack with a missile on it or something. The land guy will get a Gatling gun on his chest and another different gun on his arm, and he'll get a rocket launcher on his back, and so forth and so on. And so like when you bought the toy, that's exactly what you got. You got these mix and match, plug and play pieces that would go onto these toys, and you could put any toy on any guy, any gear on any guy, and mix it up if you wanted to. But that was the whole gimmick of these guys, where you would plug the gear into them. So I'm watching this cartoon by Ruby Spears Animation. They did on many, many, many other cartoons. I believe they eventually got absorbed by Hanna-Barbera. But it's like okay. Some of the action sequences are pretty cool. Like seeing the guy flying around is pretty cool. Some of the fighting they do with these drones. They're always fighting robots. so they can blow those up safely. No one has to worry about anybody getting harmed. That was a big deal in the 80s. You couldn't show a lot of harm on TV. So it was like they would either knock out a human guy or they would destroy a robot. That was just how it rolled. So I think some of the action is pretty cool. I think some of the suits kind of look cool. But overall, I think what this TV series suffers from is writers who are both too old and did not understand the appeal of the toys. So what I mean by this is I feel like some of the writers were working through some of their issues, because the air guy, his name is Ace McCloud, because he's the air guy, obviously. He's a fucking chauvinist, sexist piece of shit. And it really fucking bugs me to see him, how he, like, every woman who ever shows up in this cartoon. Remember, this is an 80s Saturday morning kids cartoon. This is not modern day cartoons for adults. This is not an after dark sort of a thing. This was like on Saturday fucking morning when you got up in your jammies with the feet on them and you had your bowl of cereal. And if you grew up in the 80s, you know what I'm talking about. This fucker, he hits on literally every woman that ever appears on screen. Calls them, hey, beautiful, hey, gorgeous, going my way. Hey, I got something to show you. Come back to my apartment and see my etchings and whatever. He's like a lech, dude. And I'm like, what the fuck? How is this guy hitting on every goddamn woman who shows up on screen? Like, it is disrespectful. It is weird and gross and inappropriate. And it's just shitty behavior. And the shitty part is, like, the other two guys on the screen, they don't really hit on anybody. But they will be like, oh, that Ace. Ha ha ha. Boys will be boys. He likes anything in a skirt. I think that's even what they said one time. I think they even said he'll chase anything in a skirt. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on in this fucking cartoon? It's clearly one of these writers is a piece of shit asshole. And he is like working out his issues with women on the screen. And they like approved it and let it through. Blowing my fucking mind how many times they don't even wink at this shit. Like, it's fucking awful. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is they absolutely don't understand the toys. Okay, I'll guess something else. They don't understand the toys. The toys mix and match. You have these different components. All the guys have the equal suit with a set of like holes where the gear goes. And it took them like 15 or 20 episodes before they were like, oh, I'm the sea guy, but I need to borrow the land guy's gun. And I'm like, no shit, motherfucker. That's what these toys were all about. Like, you bought the pieces and you mixed and matched and you made your own cool creation. What the fuck? How do you guys not fucking know this? Did you not buy the toys yourselves? Did you not play with the toys? How are you writing a show about these toys? You didn't even fucking play with the toys. You don't even know what the appeal of the toys is. It's blowing my fucking mind how little they do the mix and match. It just like is wild. It's fucking wild. I mean, I'm trying to compare it to like how something equally stupid, but I can't think of something equally stupid. So there's that. And then also, like, they don't do a lot of fantasy stuff. They're kind of set in a sci-fi world. They really don't leverage the sci-fi, and they often are doing boring stuff. There's very little character work happening. I think most of the time when there's no action, the three guys are sitting at their headquarters and they're just sitting around. They're just not doing anything. We don't really get to see their personalities. Like, the land guy has a dog that he walks, and I think the dog is probably the best character on the show. When he powers up, he's got a little missile pack, which is fucking amazing. A dog packing missiles? Yes, please. Give me more of that. And he fires them every once in a while. I'm like, yes, get that fucking guy, dog. Shoot that fucking robot. But they don't lean into the characters other than the guy being a fucking chauvinistic asshole. They're just like very mild, neutral milquetoast characters that don't have any defining characteristics. The lady in the space station, she doesn't have any characteristics. She's got a fucking orangutan. She barely does anything with it, and the orangutan just sits around. I'm like, I've seen you fuckers in the wild. You like throw shit. You swing from stuff. You like make funny faces. You do the thing with your teeth. Like, the orangutan is doing nothing, right? So it's like the writers just did not get into these characters, didn't really bring anything to these characters other than the cool action sequences, which again kind of makes me think the people who are writing this were out of touch and too old. I will also say they also have made a couple of Errol Flynn references. And I'm sorry, as a kid in the 80s, I knew who Errol Flynn was, but that's because I was fucking weird and I had like a lot of knowledge and I was a nerd. I don't think your average 80s child had the fucking slightest clue who Errol Flynn was. That is not a good call out, my friend. So I think there's a lot wrong with this cartoon, but I'm still watching it. The other thing that's really interesting, another missed opportunity, is like the bad guys. They've got a really interesting design visually. They're kind of like cyborgs, but they're half human, like literally half their body. is welded to a robot half of the body, but it doesn't look like the human half. It's like blocky and got these weird arms and legs and shit. Like it looks like a very mismatched half. Both the main bad guy, Doc Terror, and his, who I call his his probably not platonic partner hacker, or their, you know, his domestic partner hacker. They have these weird things, and on top of the cyborg half of their body, there are these knobs, and I always wondered about those knobs. I saw the toys, and I'm like, why are they like that? What is going on? Why are they so blocky? And what are those knobs on the top of their head or their shoulders or whatever, the cyborg shoulder? Come to find out that in the cartoon fiction, those knobs on top of the robot half of the body is actually like an AI hub which controls the robot half, which I guess is further controlled by the human half of the brain. And I'm like, dude, that's fucking interesting as shit. Why did you guys never lean into that? Why does the AI not push back? Why do you not talk about that? Like, they totally do it like it's not even a big deal, but like having this second brain, cybernetic brain, in their robot half and how that works is super fascinating. They never touch on it. I think they talk about it like at the end of the series, but like, I'm like, boy, talk about leaving stuff on the table. Anyway. Still watching the show just because I can watch it safely. That means it's something I can watch without emotionally cheating on my wife. And it's interesting. It's given me a lot of food for thought. I think I may even write an article about it because I feel like there's so many missed opportunities. I really want to just like grab the director and be like, what were you doing? Why are you guys like, oh, what's wrong? There's so much potential here and you're not using fucking any of it. And instead you're leaning into this guy who's acting like an asshole and you don't, fuck. Anyway, that's Centurions. It's kind of a trip. Not maybe for the right reasons, but a trip nonetheless. The only other thing we're watching this week is The Strain, which was a TV series from 2016-ish. And the reason I'm watching it is because it was produced by Guillermo del Toro. We just watched Frankenstein on Netflix, which was amazing. And then I was talking to a friend of the show, Mike Susky, in the Videogames Discord, and he was like, oh, you know, since we're talking about Guillermo, or GDT to his friends, have you seen The Strain? That's a TV show he did that I haven't seen. Mike hadn't seen. And I'm like, well, I haven't seen it either. And we were actually just about to wrap up another TV show. So I'm like, we got to get something else on deck. So me and the wife will watch it. And we did. We started watching it. It's 4 seasons. It does come to a conclusion at the end of the 4th season. We are now almost done with season 2. And it's been interesting. Basically, in a nutshell, it's The Walking Dead, but with vampires. But the vampires are pretty non-traditional, interesting. Basically, they are these parasites that infect you. There's a lot of worms in this show, and they will go inside your body, and they will take over your body, and they grow this like central parasite that's inside your stomach, and it'll have a big proboscis thing that shoots out of their mouth to infect other people. It's gross. They're gross, like bio vampires. They're not invulnerable. You can just like shoot them, cut off their head. I mean, you can kill them several ways. Sunlight also does kill them as well. But I think the big problem with them is they're so contagious. Like even a small scratch will infect you. And there's just like really quickly a lot of vampires running around. They have a Walking Dead kind of a thing going on where they're surviving in New York City. They're kind of like fortifying places, running from scuffle to scuffle. Characters died. Multiple characters have died so far. Nobody super major, even though there have been a couple of surprising deaths where I'm like, well, that seems like a waste. That character only joined 2 episodes ago, and I really like them, and they're going to kill that person? That's weird. But I think so far it's fine. Some of the acting is not the greatest. I think the main character, I mean, he's a fine enough actor, but his character is super fucking unlikable. He's a shitty ass doctor who's a bad dad, and he cheats on whoever he's with at the time. He's cheated on, I think, 2 partners that we know of so far. Like 1 partner per season. I guess that's the thing for him. And he's just really arrogant and just really unlikable. Some characters I like more than others. There's a rat catcher guy who's pretty fun. There's the old guy who's like the wise sage of the group who's pretty fun. He's got a cool sword. But overall, I mean, I think it's fine. It's fine. We're definitely entertained by it. I definitely want to see where it goes. I'm not going to say it's Guillermo's greatest work. And I think there's a lot TBD. I'm kind of curious to see where it goes. I'm not sure what they're going to do with the remaining 2 seasons. It kind of feels like things are building up to a head, but clearly it went on for 2 more years. So I guess the jury's out on that. But anyway, The Strain is fine. I think it's just fine. It's not great. It's not terrible. Certainly watchable, that's for sure. And I do want to, as a fan, see all of Guillermo del Toro's stuff. all his entire filmography or TVography or whatever you want to call it. Definitely want to watch all of those things. So I'm happy to watch it just in that sense. I am a completist when it comes to series or creators that I enjoy. So The Strain, I'll come back on it when we're done. We're about halfway through. So, all right, folks, there you go. That is the show. Before the closing music, would love for you to leave a review, share the show on social media, but most important of all, please recommend it to a friend because nothing beats good old word of mouth. And as always, would love to get your questions and comments. Hit me up directly, sovietgamespodcast@gmail.com. You can hit me on social media, on Instagram and Blue Sky. It's my name, BRADGALLAWAY, all A's, no O's. You can also hit me up in the Soviet Games Discord, which is totally free of charge. Just drop a line to me, and we'll get you on board to continue the conversation. And finally, if you would like to support this show and our sister site, GameCritics.com, if you want to help out with the cost of running this podcast, help me afford buying games that I do not get codes for, so forth and so on, upgrading the microphone every once in a while, you can do that over at patreon.com/the Soviet Games Podcast. Every single dollar helps, and a euro helps that much more. Folks, that's going to do it for episode 463. Thank you again for joining me here on Soviet Games Podcast, and I'll see you next week.